Willkommen, bienvenue, and welcome back to Opus Magnum with Lyte. In today's episode, we're going to cover face powder. I'm going to start off with the almighty hexagon, because whenever you're working on small area or small cost, hexagon is often the way to go. Sometimes you get a more protruding sort of hexagon with little arms and whatnot, but in general, you want to see whether or not you can get it done with one regular little arm for the lowest cost, and sometimes for the lowest area, you switch it up to a piston, and then you get the job done. Sometimes using the arm leads to a larger, like the non-piston arm, can lead to a larger area, but still a nice low cost, so try to keep that in mind when working on your own solutions. But in general, whenever working with these hexagons, you have to keep in mind that these atoms block one another, and so if you've got two different inputs, you don't want them running into each other, and you don't want them always going over the salt, because if you salt them, well, you can run into trouble. But here, with this simple little hexagon, we've got our minimum cost solution, because all we have is a simple arm. Not going to get any cheaper than that. And we've got the minimum space, because we went over no empty hexagons. Now, if you go over any empty hexagons, there's a chance it's not optimal. You'll have to do some other tinkering and figuring to see whether or not it is, but if you go over no empty hexagons, then you know that it's optimal. But keep in mind, even if you graze a hexagon when swinging things about, it still counts. Oh, also counts if an empty arm goes over it. Keep an eye out. After we did the hexagon, we were on stream. I was tinkering about seeing what sorts of things we could do, and this was an idea that we as a group had, and I like how it works. I like how it sounds. I like how it just aesthetically, it's really cool. How it sews it all together, salts it on its way, snips it off, and sends it into the bin. It's not super efficient, but it's really quite elegant code-wise. For how much it doesn't take a whole lot of code, and not complicated code either. Because all you've got is a handful of arms going back and forth in a particular direction, and one piston pulling. That's all you've got here. It's pretty fun. Not optimal in any sense. This game isn't just about optimality, it's also about fun. If you're not having fun, probably shouldn't call it a game. But let's get to things that are at least verging on optimality. Because after that, I was like, well, perhaps we should do something like this. And, well, it's a bit of a mess. I mean, the coding is a bit of a mess. The thing itself is a bit of a mess. But when you hit play, it gets the job done. It takes the inputs out as fast as they are generated. So asymptotically, we know it's optimal. In the long run, you're producing your output as fast as you possibly can, because you're bottlenecked by your inputs. But when you're trying to shave off a few cycles for a truly optimal solution for this game, you also have to consider what path it takes to get from here to there. And in this case, we're going from here to here to here to there. So we have our unavoidable input cycles. So we need to make 6 products with 2 inputs each. So that's 12 inputs times 2 cycles to even remove them from the bin is 24. So 24 is the absolute minimum, and that's if you're just taking it from here and chucking it in the bin. Any sort of maneuverings that have to happen up here require you to not only move it out, but you have to bind it, salt it, and drop it. So this 27, not necessarily optimal, and as you probably saw by one of my other things that was listed, it's not. You can take a shorter trip at the end, and that's where you shave off a cycle or 2. If you want to shave off a lot, make sure it's asymptotically optimal. Once it's asymptotically optimal, then you work on the path that it's taking and seeing if it's as short as it can be. Now, also, this was made before I knew about this V repeat command. I'll show you how that works in this one. Now, I shave off one cycle, a lot of area, and a lot of cost. This one, clearly better than division. No matter what combined metric you're using, this is better than that. If somehow your metric does not agree, your metric is just wrong, because every number is lower. And so this one, vastly simpler, and this repeat is really quite useful. So long as it always does the same thing, you can say, do this thing, and then repeat it. Instead of writing it out and then writing it out, or writing out and copying it using control. Because you can grab a thing and control drag it to create a copy. Brilliant. Now, this guy, well, number one, right here, grabs, moves, drops. Then number two, grabs it, moves it and salts it, moves it into position to be bonded, waits to be bonded, and then chucks it in the bin. So that's these commands right here. I group 1 and 2 together because they're on the same side of this thingamajig. And then this clock just tells it this is how long the cycle is. It's not a 7-length cycle, it's an 8. It's not necessary. In this particular design, you don't have to put it there. This empty space is enough. I like putting it there just to be very clear for myself what the cycle length really is. Then number 3 down here, grabs, drags it over here, drops it. Drag, drop, drag, drop, drag, drop. All day long. And then number 4 here, grabs it, and then it moves, and then it moves, and it waits, and it moves and drops it in the bin. Which seems very similar to over here, except due to the distance from the salt maker to the salt bin, it has to go that tiny bit further. And thus it has an extra move direction that the other one is lacking. And so to see that in nice slow motion, grab, move, and so on down the line. And with the staggered input leads to staggered output. And we've got ourselves a very quick thing that the final input, which is grabbed here, moved to here, and then moved to the bin. So that's our 24 mandatory plus 2. Now, the only way that this would be even more optimal was if somehow that last one was just moved straight onto the bin, which you're never going to have because you're going to have to bond it or salt it or something. So unless it's just throwing it straight into the bin, you're not getting better than 26 on a 6 product 4 item output or 2 item compound. So 26 is the best we're ever going to get for this. And I really like the way it staggers this, and it has the little rain clouds over top, and just an overall pleasing sort of puzzle to look at. So if you have any questions about this design, it is relatively straightforward, but I did rush a bit through it. So thank you for being here. And if there's anything you would like to hear or see in these videos, feel free to let me know. We're going to get into some more complicated puzzles soon, some of which you might not necessarily be able to just suss out an optimal solution for. I'm not even certain I've got the optimal solution for all of the puzzles that I've done, and I just keep coming back to them going, oh, I could totally shave off a cycle, or I could totally shave off an empty hex. But that's all for our good friend, the Face Powder, and I will see you in the next episode of Opus Magnum with Lyte.